Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Monday. It is the last Monday of February. My goodness gracious, where has time gone? Nobody knows, except Father Time, of course, himself or herself. Maybe it's Mother Time. I'm not really quite sure. But either way, we're excited to have you along wherever you're watching, near and far. Jonathan Turn alongside Nathan Wangler. It is Monday, and Jimmy Coe is already here. If Peter does not show up today, we are going to be contacting the police. Welfare check. That's why
police. Straight to the police.
We're gonna welfare check. He had not missed a single show in our first 31, and
I believe so. I believe that's what it
the
was.
third consecutive if we don't hear from him. So, but either way, it is Monday. A lot happened this weekend around the sports world. We'll get into that today. Also, we're finishing up our Horizon League men's and women's basketball this week. We'll talk about that a little bit today. Women's soccer kicking off here this past week. The She Believes Cup. We'll get into a little bit of that this morning. MASL continuing, some movement there. We'll take a look at some of the standings and talk about this past weekend. But I got to start this off with this. I'm a little pissed off this morning. A little pissed off. Oh, Peter's alive and well. Peter alive and well. Okay, Peter. We were this close, man. We were this close to contacting the authorities to do a welfare check on you. That's
missing persons report.
Do you think that's even a thing? Do you think that we could do that? Do you think that we could literally be like, hey, call the police? But yeah, we're podcast hosts here in Michigan. We've not heard from one of our guests. One of our viewers in a couple of days. We want to make sure he's okay. I think they'd be like,
I think they would tell you to never call again. Or either that or wait till it's an emergency and then call. Thank you very much.
It'd be like a Home Alone. We're going to pass you off to disgruntled viewers hotline real quick.
Or they would ask to watch the show itself, and then they'd watch it, and they'd be like, well, maybe we understand why he disappeared. I don't know, You guys drove him to it.
But either way, we're glad to have you back, Peter, wherever you were. It's unacceptable, by the way, that you were not here for the last 2 episodes. We won't get into that, though, too much. But here's why I'm pissed. And I am not pissed at Peter. I am pissed at my Oakland staff. All right, so on Monday of last week, we knew that we were down a camera operator for the game yesterday, Sunday. And it's a men's game. So on men's games, I don't call those games. So a lot of times I'm floating around, assisting, helping out the team, and getting ready pre-game show, post-game stuff that I do. And yesterday we didn't have to do any of that stuff because of it was senior day and it was a lot of other things going on. So they said, let's not do any of those things today. And since we knew they didn't have a camera operator, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do it today. And so yesterday I walked up to David. David's one of our camera operators. He's always baseline cam. I'm like, David, I'm doing baseline tomorrow. All right, so you can slide into graphics or whatever, do something else, but tomorrow I'm taking baseline cam. All right, and everybody was like, okay, cool, whatever, And I had, to be fair, I had in the past tried to get David to get off baseline cam so I could give it a go when I was bored and doing nothing at the events, and there was one time he let me do a half. I had a blast. I almost got tackled at one point by a player. It's really chaotic under the basket, man, especially in basketball games. It was a great first half.
Yep.
Anyways, so yesterday I show up, right? I got all my gear on, my Premier Media gear, crew, T-shirt on, which I don't typically wear. I'm excited to be back. I got my hair did, and extra special for baseline cam, and I get there and they're like, yeah, we're going to move you to slash cam, like camera 4, which to be fair is beauty shots. And for, the person who's a brand new camera operator, I go, whoa, I was supposed to do baseline cam. Yeah, we know that, but we're going to put you at slash cam. I'm like, I don't want to pull the owner card, but maybe I could pull the owner card here, but if it's the best thing for the production, I will go do slash cam. Okay. I was so excited about being baseline cam yesterday. I did not get baseline cam yesterday. I got slash cam. And I'm pissed. I think that my camera might have gone. Well, first things first, out of every break, I'm supposed to stay wide and just have this nice wide angle of the arena. So, it's nice beauty shot, right? And then the rest of the time I'm following play, I'm doing things, but they just come to me every once in a while. But everybody else, camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, man, they got like 40 looks in game. Me, I'm over here, owner of the company, sitting off in the back over here, and I'm not getting any camera love. And they're probably just all like, yeah, this is great, But I did not pull the owner card. I didn't do it. I wasn't like, hey, I'm the owner. I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want to do. I'm like, if this is the best thing for the production, I will go sit off in the corner over here and be in, this not important land.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing is that when you have more people under you that understand what needs to be done and where, that kind of alleviates a lot of other tensions. And I think at the same exact time, it probably allows you to do a little bit more with what you want to do if you have, people under you that know what they're doing. But I do understand the temptation in that moment of pulling that card. I really do.
You guys know who pays you, right? You know who pays you, right? Like, signs your paychecks. And that's my question back to our view. If you're watching right now, should I have pulled that card yesterday? What if you were in my shoes? Would you pull that card? Be like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go where I want to go. You know what I mean? Yeah, I made a little joke. I joked around a little bit about it, but they knew I wasn't gonna push that. I'm not gonna do that. Now, there might be a time and a place where I do that, but it's not gonna be in that environment. But curious your thoughts there at home. About if I should pull the owner card to get my way to do things that otherwise I probably wouldn't be doing. Anyways, it is Monday. It's 9:07 here in the morning. It's not that bad out there. Kids are back in school today. Thank goodness. They had the week off last week. That drives me nuts. And love my children to death, but when they're home, they create chaos, and when they're not home, it's chaos at school, so I don't have to worry about it. So it's great. Jimmy Coda say welcome back, Peter. Good to see you. And then thank you, Jimmy. Good to see you too, buddy. So there you go, back at it.
The dialogue is back.
Yeah. So this past weekend, we had an MASL 3 game. And MASL, so our major arena soccer league agreement is for the League One, Division One, right? 12 teams in the MASL. And as part of that agreement, we distribute on our platform and also to other platforms on behalf of the MASL their games. So if you're watching our games on our platform, it's because we're receiving them from the MASL. And then we put them on our platform. And then we also send them to other platforms around the world to assist them in their distribution. It's a great relationship. But as part of that, we also got some introductions into some other MASL 2 and 3 teams. Also, like OKC Certified Lions is one of those contracts that we have. And we look at our schedule on a weekly basis, Nathan, right? I look at it, and we actually have it 2 weeks. We have a full master schedule that we have of all of our games. And then we have what we call this week's schedule and next week's schedule. So we're constantly looking at this week and next week. And so next week, obviously, is this current next week. But then, obviously, as we get into the following week, it'd be next week comes this week and so on, right? So we're constantly looking between 2 and 3 weeks out at our broadcast to make sure we have staffing, make sure what we're doing, have a clear idea of our scheduling. This game was not on my schedule. And the reason why is back in December, they had canceled one of their games. They never notified me that the game had been rescheduled. Mm-hmm. So here we are on Saturday morning. And the only reason why I even picked up the phone to call this, the owner of the team, was we received a payment. One of our payments came in through our payment account. I'm going, we just got paid. It's Saturday. Something's not right here. So I'm looking through the schedule. It's not there. I call him. I go, it's today a makeup game? He's like, certainly is. I go, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for letting us know. We got you covered. We're good there. And then I started the rounds of calling, calling you, calling a number of people, and finally was able to get Jan Volker to call the game. The reason why I wanted to show this and talk about this is because on Saturday night, just for about 20 minutes during this game, I was able to, and I don't know why, Google is starting to bother me. By the way, that's another thing that's starting to grind my gears. Nathan, is it keeps logging me out, making me log back in. Like, why is that even a thing? I don't quite understand why I have to deal with that. But
Interesting.
does it do it to you at all too, or no? It makes you have to
Yeah,
log back in.
it's the whole authentication, and Chrome can
it's
be
getting
weird
ridiculous.
too. And
Well, anyways, so I started to kind of share like behind the scenes a little bit. And I'm gonna put this on the screen, like behind the scenes of me, kind of producing this game from home on where is that? Here we go. Behind the scenes at home on Saturday night. So on your screen here is an actual look at our studio in Shelby Township. I'm able to log into our computer remotely at the studio and handle the feed. And we had Jan Volker, who was at his house in Southfield, Detroit, wherever he lives, calling the game from there as well. And I actually show a part on the screen here where, like, he might actually, and I can do everything. I can do all the commercials. I can run everything for the broadcast from here. And I know for a fact that I put him, like, at some point, I didn't put him on the screen, but I showed the viewer at home, like, here's a look at Jan from his, like, his, I think it was in his room. Just try to find him if it's on the screen at all anywhere. I thought I put him on the screen a little bit here, but I guess maybe I didn't. But anyways, it's pretty cool that we're able to do this. And I know Jimmy had a chance to kind of tune in. He actually put a comment, and that was cool to see. But again, the kind of the back end of how we pull up broadcasts, right? And you've been a part of those broadcasts. We're using different technology today than we were when you did it back in the day, but it's really cool how we're able to do this.
yeah, and the piece of technology that you had mentioned that we're using is called vMix. And what that gives us the capability of doing, and what gives you the capability of doing, is all the stuff that you would have access to in terms of editing from the in-studio location. You have access to that at your own house. Yeah, so there's Jan. You got to get him set up with a green screen or something.
Well, I wasn't gonna put him on the screen, but
right. But anyways, so that's the technology that's being used, and that's the part of kind of what we're trying to accomplish here, and what I try to get across to people too. We live stream games, but this isn't us like showing up to every single game with a ragtag bunch and all of our equipment and calling the game and going home. We're doing multiple of these games in stretches of days. And the reason why we're able to do it is because we have, what's up, Jan? Green screen could work out. They're nice.
Speaking of the devil,
I got one. I got one on here that I like to pop up back behind me sometimes. I got to get a few new ones. I got an old one in there. But anyways, I know anytime we have a meeting with Dan Stickrat, he has
there's Jan. Welcome, Jan.
Yeah, those are your suits hanging up behind you.
No,
that's a cool microphone though. He's got a cool mic. Anyways,
no, and it was and Jan did a great job. And because you think about this, right? The way that he's able to see the game, it's so different, right? I mean, my guess is this is his first time ever doing something of the sort. Now, I know Jan on a personal level will do some commentary of like professional level matches to help get better at his craft, right? Which all of us need to improve on how we call games. So if you don't have enough reps, you have to create your reps. And how do you do that? By watching games, and this being part of that process. So while that is very similar, right? Thinking about it from that standpoint, it's the same kind of concept. The only difference, obviously, with our world is that we probably don't necessarily have the best camera people, right? All the time, right? Sometimes we were reliant on our own internal people that we use. And other times we are totally self-reliant on someone we have no control over. And in
Right.
this environment in OKC, the camera operator has tended to be like forgetful. Like I think they forget that they're actually a camera operator sometimes, and like the camera just comes to a stop, and they don't, you know,
I've been
like.
there. Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yep.
I feel like that's an actual thing, um, but yeah, I mean, and we just started doing this, and this is where it's like, well, a lot of people could do this. Yes, I want to put things in perspective. We use a system that costs us about $200 a month just to have access so that I can log in remotely to our computers. Okay, so that's first and foremost. And it's $200 per month per user. So as we start to offer our services to other remote producers who are going to be in other parts of the country, just do the math on that. If we have 25 or 30 stations that are remote, take 30 times 200, you're paying $6,000 a month to do this. Okay. The vMix itself is $50 a month. You know what I mean? That's, that and then now per station, right? So $50 per month, right? And times that by 50, 100 stations, right? Again, you get the idea of how much that could cost, right? Um, and then there's all the other things that go into it, that we have to do. But that just kind of gives you a general idea. So this is not like something that is like inexpensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can cost a lot of money. And the great thing about it is that this vMix allows us to reach out to Jan from at his home, get him set up, and be able to call games from his living room or his bedroom, wherever he has his setup. And then it's a perfect way for us to be able to do this and do it with people all around the country.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
Well, and it's new too. It's not. This the thing is like the technology and the ability to do this. It's not like it's brand new. Please stop talking to me about like that.
I think
I know we know
Peter,
you're not missing. We're just messing around, Peter.
Peter
We know
has
you're- we know
Peter
you're all
has
good.
been a camera operator for us. So I
Yeah.
don't think that I think he's maybe thinking that we're talking about.
Oh, the
him.
camera operator. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I know he's done that before. It'll look around, pitch for other actions.
But we
Sometimes it
weren't
looks-
talking about Peter. So
Yeah. No, yeah, we trust me. I've even at the schools that I do games for, like a lot of times they'll just have students run the camera, and so a lot of times they forget too because they're watching their roommate play or whatnot. So camera's over here, and we got a fast break dunk going on over here, and I'm calling it like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and yet the only thing we can see is an empty half of a court. So it is what it is. So what I will say though is like as time continues, I think that technology will become less expensive because the truth is, and we mentioned this on an earlier podcast, companies are realizing, even the big dogs are realizing there's a lot of money to be saved, and therefore, convenience and logistically speaking, all of that stuff from being able to do the whole remote thing more efficiently. And that's where the vMix comes into play with us because it allows us to expand and do more. Now, you're right. There are certain elements of that are not where they need to be. A lot of times it can be camera operators. A lot of times it can be view sites and angles, depending on what arena or stadium you're in. Sight lines are different depending on where you go. And I mean, even in person, I call games at places that sometimes can be an absolute nightmare when it comes to sight lines. And so there are also certain things about the dynamics of the stadiums that we're at that we simply we can't help. But this is where, we are able, and as JT said on our last show, right, we control the entire space, right? From the moment we say go to the moment we end, we control all of that. And so we can create, the professional based broadcast that is remote, and we can do so many of them again, because we're taking the feed into our studio and then we're broadcasting it out from there. I'd say it does work out. Yeah, honestly, it does work out very well. And so that's the beauty of that technology, so, and I think it's going to become less expensive once it becomes more readily available. I think once more people start kind of hopping on, or maybe it goes the other way. Maybe it becomes more expensive, but that's the reality of it is it allows us to do that. And again, this is kind of like the new wave. What if we're trying to make ourselves different here, and not different in any big major way. This isn't, we're not, this isn't like a Barstool to your ESPN type thing, but this is, how do we continue to do this job at a high level, but do it differently than the way everybody else is doing it? And I think specifically at the youth level, there's just not a whole lot of this going on. vMix is great, but the issue is connectivity, still expensive, high internet speed connections, SIM cards, and reliable Wi-Fi. That definitely
Well, it's a great point because Peter, who does great work in the Chicagoland area, and a lot of work with Chicago Nation, who is a good friend of the network and someone that we've covered their games in the past, and Garrett Hayward, great work that they do there in Chicago Nation. There's something called YOLO. And YOLO box, I think is what it's called. And I think Peter has one of those. And that's what that is it's designed to be, it's an encoder. And you plug your phone into it, or your phone connects via Wi-Fi, and you plug your camera into this encoder. It's all touchscreen, and it actually allows you to insert graphics and all these different things into the platform from the field, right? So it's really helping the small company, or that maybe that the person who's like an intern, being able to manage that environment. And it's true. What Peter is saying about from the broadcasting standpoint of the game, the biggest challenge when we started doing this 4 years ago was always, and it still is today, the biggest challenge is internet. You can talk about connectivity, but it's internet. That's the biggest challenge. And that's why, for me, what we've been able to do is eliminate that from our conversation. We don't travel to games with our devices anymore, right? As far as like all of our equipment. I mean, I'm tired of bringing, $25,000 worth of equipment and lugging that 100 pounds of gear up into a press box, setting it up and tearing it down each and every night. I was getting tired of that. And like, how do we solve this problem? The way to do it is to send a camera out into the field with a device that sends a signal back to us. And that's what we've been able to do. And for example, like in OKC, they don't have a live view, which we use live views. There's an encoder that they're using. And that encoder is what they just plug into the hardwire internet. And that sends us a signal once they connect the camera. So there's a lot of different ways for us to get the signal. With Peter, we've actually, again, had him sending through his YOLO box using his Wi-Fi on his phone, sending signals back from Chicago into our studio and being able to call games. So that's how that's been able to work. We have a lot of solutions like that where we can work that problem and figure out how to help teams and help these games get covered. So it's a great point. For the sake of time, I want to move on. We talked about this MASL 3 game. I do want to talk about the MASL a little bit, right? And this past weekend, a lot of games happening. Again, there are a lot of them on our platform, as they always are. Let's take a look here at the current MASL standings. And, the Chihuahua Savage still sit right there at the top, right? 19 games played, 15 wins, 4 losses. This team they are destined to be a three-peater in the playoffs again, right? And that they've won it 2 years in a row. Right. And now they're really putting themselves in prime position to be in that place here at the end of the season again. Right. And the playoffs come up here April the 4th through the 6th. So that's all going to happen here, obviously in the month of April. But San Diego Sockers were actually second place. They're currently sitting in third. Kansas City making some noise here this weekend, making their way into second place. They have 38 points, so 5 points behind Chihuahua, and they're right below them. 2 points below is San Diego, and then the Baltimore Blast. So, and I think it's important too, when we talk about our growth as a network, Nathan. People keep talking about the Roku side of this, and Roku has been one of those things where I know we're talking about MASL, but I think it's important we talk about this for a moment. Is the Roku has been kind of like this thing for us, where right now we're live on Roku. Over the last 90 days, we've really been testing hard on Roku so that we can deliver a high quality product consistently on that platform, right? And that's been our biggest challenge. And I've been very hesitant about kind of really putting a lot of content there, because if I can't deliver the high end product, then the viewer at home is not going to be happy with us. So I've really been cautious YouTube's always been a high quality deliverable, but Roku is not. And the reason why is we've been changing the servers behind the scenes, and there's been a lot of things going on. But I can tell you right now that I am at that point now where we are extremely comfortable with that. And which now means that we, as part of our process, will start to manage our broadcasts in a very responsible and localized national way. What it means is that, like, for example, this upcoming weekend, we will, on our 24 hours a day, 7-day a week platform, we will make that our national channel. So when we have games, like thinking of like just ESPN, right? ESPN regular TV, right? That's a big deal, right? If you're on that platform, that's a big deal, right? ESPN Plus, not the same, doesn't carry the same weight, right? So what we're doing is we're kind of giving that look and feel. So on our Roku TV channel, we will actually be able to do that now, moving here into this weekend, starting on Saturday in the month of March. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really cool. And I will show you what that looks like, because I think it's important to show that as well. And I think it's important that we show this when we're talking about showing our platform. So right now, here's our Roku channel. There we are. We can maybe wave, and it'll give it a second, and it'll show up there. But on the Roku, up here at the top of your screen, you've got your events, TV shows, on demand, live TV and radio, and then your guide. If you click on guide, it actually takes you to our guide. So on Saturday, we have NSN National, and then we have MASL NSN Channel 1. So the MASL NSN Channel 1 is more like your local, right? It's more regionalized. So if we go over here, this game, the MASL 102 Chihuahua Savage versus Dallas Sidekicks, is a nationally recognized game, right? So that will get our national attention, and then the MASL 103 will be more regionalized. It won't get the same weight. So when you look at this game, for example, we go to live TV, you've got your MASL NSN Channel 1. This is where that game will play. And then right here on our homepage, if you logged in, you would see the game right here, right on the homepage, right? So that is the thing that we are going to start doing with the MASL starting this weekend. And again, we'll do that kind of like flexing it, right? We'll look at the schedule and say, okay, who's in the standings, and then based on that, we'll actually assign games into those areas of our site with that in mind.
Yeah, and that'll be really nice. Like I said, I always thought the quality of the broadcasts were where they need to be. But it's nice to have the quality, the star power that we do have. And so, but it is, you're right. When you're on that bigger platform, it just kind of stresses the importance of just doing things the right way. Which you can't really it's tough because we want to go all in on what's already worked for us, which has been YouTube. That's been the platform that's worked for us. And I think it's a lot of it, JT, has to do with accessibility. Which when you think about YouTube, it is, it's I feel like everybody's using YouTube in one way or the other. But
yeah,
now that we have this 24/7 channel, I mean, that's kind of where, even if you miss something, even if you could go to our YouTube page and watch it back if you want, or you can go to our 24/7 channel. And that's kind of like I feel like that's the next, natural step in the progression for us, was not only opening up that channel, but really leaning heavy into that. And so I think that'll help at least get a lot more views and attention on our television broadcast. That's the job's calling. Later, Gators. See you, Jimmy. Yeah, don't skip out on your job for us. But that's what I'll say about that, is that I feel like that kind of opens us up for a lot.
No, it does. And that's the really cool thing about all this, is that it does in fact do that. And and that's the reason why we wanted to go in this natural space for us, which allows our viewers to have a cool new look and feel. But with that being said, the MASL is we have, I think, in total this week, with the MASL, we are going to have 1, 2, 3, just 4 games this week on the platform. Our national coverage game, Chihuahua versus Dallas, that game on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Kansas City versus Milwaukee. So both the first and second place teams this week will make their way to our national platform. And obviously, all these games in theory are national because you can watch them from anywhere in the world. But more importantly, they will be on our national platform here later this weekend. So yeah, let's dive into this She Believes Cup here a little bit this morning. It's 9:30, and this She Believes Cup, I think it started. I don't know the exact year it started. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was back like in 2018. It was like right after I think the women won the World Cup, or right before they won a World Cup, and it's been this kind of like invite tournament where I think 4 teams play in it. I think this year you got Japan, Panama, Brazil, and Australia, I believe, are in this tournament. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, all teams. Yeah, so
Japan, Colombia, Australia, and the United States. So it's
not
it's kind of like a 4 nations type thing.
Not Panama. I see Panama here though, so that's why I'm curious.
Maybe they had a friendly against them. I'm not sure.
That says no, it's the Nations League. Okay, so that's why She Believes Cup. Okay, that's so I'm looking at the upcoming schedule of games, and She Believes is coming up this Wednesday at 10:30. And that is that the final game of this She Believes Cup?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's the US Japan. I think it's the championship game, which oddly enough, I think Japan actually has more points than the US. Or no, they're tied in points right now.
Yeah,
but
so
at least overall scoring,
right.
I think Japan holds that tiebreaker, which I don't really understand what that means if they're going to play in the final anyways. But I was kind of surprised by how much, in terms of how developed they've become in the sport of soccer, Japan. It's kind of nuts. Because I know that obviously the U.S. has gone toe-to-toe with a lot of different countries, down the stretch, Australia, in women's soccer, there's a lot of different countries that have made it to the top. I feel like there's more, I wouldn't say necessarily more parity, but it certainly sometimes feels like that in the women's game than there is in the men's game. In the men's game, you have your handful of countries that are going to be in the mix, like regardless, but their player development over in Japan, difference is goal differential. Yep. Japan has the edge in that. But it's amazing to see what they've been able to do in terms of developing talent on the soccer pitch. The men's side in Japan, I don't believe they've done very much, but the women's side is a different story. So we'll have to see what happens in that game. I think the most fascinating part to me, though, JT, was in the U.S.'s last game against Australia. And we talked a little bit about this before coming onto the show. They had replaced all 11 starters, I think, from their previous game. So I don't know. I can't remember I think they beat Colombia in their first game. And then they come out against Australia. And I don't know what led to this or why they ended up choosing this, maybe because of commitments to other teams, or they wanted to try out a new rotation. I'm not sure, but they replaced all 11 and they still went out and they won convincingly. Well, not convincingly, I guess 2-1 isn't convincingly, but they beat Australia, which is another very high profile team in the women's international scene. So to me, when we talk about shining a light on the game, sometimes I think we get so caught up in the men's conversation. How do we get to that level? How do we compete with all these other teams? And I think sometimes we tend to leave the women's soccer off the table. Not that we don't mention them, but especially on the international level. What's amazing to me is that the U.S. in women's soccer, they kind of pulled the opposite of what we've seen in some of the other international sports. To give you a good example, I'm watching a documentary right now called Court of Gold. It's on Netflix. It's about the U.S. men's basketball team at this last Olympics when they went to Paris and ended up beating France in the gold medal game, the whole Steph Curry thing. And I remember that they started off with, and I loved how they did this. They started it off in 92, talking about the Dream Team. And how when those guys went to the Olympics, it was like a Harlem Globetrotters type event. Like we knew the United States was going to manhandle every team they played. Like that was just the reality. But they sent the best of the best from the best basketball country in the world. And it was like a rock concert, So These guys that were showing up and playing them, they would go out, let's say like Nigeria. They go out, they lose by 45. And then after the game, they would start asking for autographs and signatures and jerseys and everything like that because these guys were their idols. And that 92 team had MJ on it. And the one thing you should know about MJ, if his performance, if the winning the titles and the 2 3-peats and everything, if that's not big enough for you to talk about, GOAT status or whether he's a legend in the game, he had a very much not to the political reach that Ali had, but in terms of the impact on the sport itself. I mean, he almost kind of had like a Muhammad Ali impact on the game of basketball because it made it an international game. And so you go to 92 and then the years start passing by. And of course the US is rolling through everybody. And then all of a sudden we get to, 2008? We didn't win gold. We finished in second. And then the world championships, Greece wins it. And then all of a sudden Canada wins a world championship. And now we're going into this Olympics and there's this realization like we're beatable. We introduced this game that was not just the United States, but, Father Naismith was born in Canada, but he, invented the game in the US. But, this whole time we hadn't really seen any international competition up to our level. Now it's different. Canada's really good. Canada's got stars top to bottom. France has some of the best players in the world, including Victor Wembanyama. Serbia has arguably currently the best player in the NBA with Nikola Jokic. So every single country that you look at that's competing now in the Olympics, it's like they all have dogs. They all have superstars. South Sudan lost to the U.S. by 4 points in their friendly before the Olympics. And it all stems from the fact that all of these countries have now put systems in places and, trainers and coaches and everything under one umbrella to try to develop players at the highest level to go compete on the world level. And I know that basketball is a different sport than soccer is, but they've ever since really that 92 and before then. And again, Serbia was good back when they were Yugoslavia, but that was, a combination of 4 different regions or whatever. But anyways, that's what happened, as they saw us and then they went home and they're like, okay, we got to start developing guys to play at the next level. And of course it didn't happen over a stretch of 5, 10, 15 years. We're talking about 3 decades later that now countries are in a place where they can go out and they can compete with the United States to go win gold medals. And so obviously we were able to get the job done. But what the future tells us is it might just be a toss-up. This isn't just an American sport anymore. So the U.S. did kind of that reverse, but in women's soccer. The player development in the United States for women's soccer is amazing. And it's kind of cemented us as one of the best soccer playing countries in the world. And to have the ability to replace the 11 starters that you had from the previous game and go out and win the next one shows me that not only are they getting at that level, but now they have depth. And it's all because of those players that initially kind of spurred on that movement in U.S. women's soccer. So I think on the men's side, we're just kind of looking for that one lucky run. We're looking for that one big push where we can stand up against one of the bigger countries in the world, and to really start spurring it in the right direction. I know we have the systems in place, but I think we just, maybe part of me thinks we just need that one good run to start getting everybody on board. But I think it's just kind of fascinating to see the difference, in soccer.
Well, let's talk the numbers here real quick.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is important. Okay. And all due respect to the men's national team. Okay. All due respect.
Yeah.
So the men's national team have been a part of 11 editions of the World Cup. Okay. So 11, right? They qualified for 11. I don't know if that counts like right now because of the fact that they didn't have to qualify because they're hosting this one with like 3 other countries. So Mexico, Canada, and the United States are all hosting this next World Cup. So I don't know what I don't know. But with that being said, they've been to 11 of them. They have played a total of 37 games. All right. Played a total of 37 games. Their record is 9-8-20. 9, 8, and 20. All right. They've scored 40 goals, allowing 66. All right. Now, the women have played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They played in 9. They played a total of 54 matches, 41 wins, 9 draws, 4 losses, 142 goals for, 39 goals against. Men's national team has never won a World Cup. The furthest that they've ever gone is the quarterfinals. That is the furthest. Back in 2002, they finished 8th. All right. Now take it back. They finished 3rd place back in 1930. So I lied. 3rd place back in 1930. Finished 3rd place. So I apologize. The women, on the other hand, have won 4 World Cups: 1991, 1999, 2015, 2019. They finished 3rd place 1, 2, 3 times, and they were runner-ups once. Okay. Now, I know the argument is, well, women's soccer, men's soccer. It's not the fault of the women, right? I mean, it's not the fault of the women that they are over here. I'm sorry. The men have been playing since 1930. Women started playing in 1991 is when the Women's World Cup basically started. It's not even close. We have 9 wins. 9 wins in the history of the World Cup. 9 since 1930. That is atrocious.
Yeah.
It's atrocious. I understand there's other parts of the world that are better at soccer than us. You have 9 wins in your history. 9. And again, I'm looking at Wikipedia, so if I am off, I am. But according to this, they have played a total of 37 games since 1930. They have won 9, they've tied 8, and they have lost 20. Okay. Now, from a qualifying standpoint, they played 168 games. They've won 84, lost 44, and tied 40 and tied 40 and lost 44. So obviously playing a lot more games in qualification. But they have not even qualified they did not qualify from 1954 to 1986. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They did not qualify for 9 World Cups in a row. 9 in a row. So, I'm sorry, USA men's national team. Historically, terrible. Terrible. And as a society, shame on us for not putting more into the women's side, who have won 4 World Cups and been the most dominant World Cup the team in the world since its beginning. And again, because of how great, and this is why I think it's important to say this, America is a great country. Whether you don't believe that or not, that's a whole nother level. But because the reality is that the women's national team has been so great is because we as a society and as a culture and as a country have elevated women to be in a position where they can play soccer like this, while other countries did not make that possible.
Yeah.
It was not a possibility. So we have to, as a country, acknowledge the fact that there's a reason why we were number 1 for such a long time. And we were and the reason we have been so good is because we have developed the best players in the world at that sport on the women's side. Right? That's why. Now, if you look at it like from the men's side, where did soccer begin? Across the pond, right? Where is it more popular? Everywhere else. And that's why it's so much harder for men to compete in that realm, because it started someplace else and we're kind of over here trying to make it work. But the women have always been good at this.
Right.
And the fact that we aren't selling out stadiums, and this is the thing that I have a hard time with. Okay. And I have a hard time with it everywhere I go. Women's sports. Why aren't people going and watching these games? Why aren't they showing up in just why not? And to be fair, if these stadiums were filled with 85,000 women, that would be okay. That'd be okay. But it's not. We're not. We're not filling it up with 85,000 women. We are relying on men to show up to watch these games. And that is a shame. Like I did a women's basketball game on Saturday. I don't know, a couple hundred people there. Did a men's basketball game the next day. 1,000, a couple thousand there, right? Well, why is that? Why is that? It's because you're asking people to care about a sport that they don't necessarily care about, right? And
Yeah.
if you can't get, I mean, again, the women's game should have a heavy women presence, right? Young girls, teenage girls, women, it should be heavy women. But for some reason it's not. And I don't know why that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. What I'll say, and I think it's important that you pointed out the discrepancy in making that available to women in the United States, the ability to play, the ability to train, the ability to go to the highest level. You're right. That wasn't allowed in a lot of different parts of the world. And so that's something that not only did we benefit from, I think we've taken advantage of. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, because I think it shows, even if it's American greatness, I think that rubs off on the rest of the world. But here's what I'll say, and I think it was kind of telling, and I think it's fitting that I watched this documentary, coming into the show. Bogdan Bogdanovic, who is on Serbia, he plays in the NBA and whatnot, but he talked about how, there's no greater pride than playing for your country, but it's bigger than that. The reason why basketball is so big in Serbia specifically, and we'll just focus on them as a case study. First of all, you got to think of Serbia as a country is like what? New York City in terms of population. I mean, how big is Serbia? I know I got Google right in front of me.
I'll look at it. Go.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But the thing that Bogdanovic said is that the reason why they are so in love with the sport of basketball was because when they had their civil war, when Yugoslavia broke up and it became Monaco or Mongolia, and it all broke up. The one thing that really kept them all together was sports, and not just any sport. It was basketball. It helped that society through 3 years of civil war kind of get through everything that they were going through. And so it highlights that, culturally speaking, at the very soul of the Serbian society, they believe they are the best in the world at basketball. And so pretty much all of their resources, everything that they have, they dump into, let's get our guys ready to go compete on the international level against the likes of the United States. And they had the U.S. down by 16, 17 in their semifinal game in the Olympics. A country the size of New York City had the U.S. down by 17 in the semifinals. So what I will say about this and why that matters, it is doable, but it takes a culture that lives, breathes, and dies that sport. And that's
football. But even then, again, I don't know the numbers of women, but obviously since Taylor Swift has got into the whole NFL thing with Travis Kelce, that's obviously brought in a whole new fan base of women to watch football, but because of Taylor. So you obviously have that going for you. First things first, Serbia has a population of 6.623 million. New York City has a population of just over 8. So that makes, that's a significant, actually it's 2 million people is a significant difference. So New York is actually bigger in population than Serbia. But with that being said, I don't disagree with you. But if we're going to be yelling up at a microphone at the whole world saying, well, we want, and again, this is not about a political thing for me right now, and not about equal pay. I believe everyone deserves equal, whatever equal might mean in that environment. Equity and equality, those are all things I'm for, especially I have daughters, right? But the men's basketball game had a couple thousand, the women's basketball game had a couple hundred, and that's been that way the entire season. And if you go to most arenas around this country, women's game is going to have significantly less than men. significantly. It's not even close. But why is that? It's not because the men aren't going. It's because the women aren't going. More women have to start showing up to women's events. That's what has to happen. And I know that Peter's going to say, he's like, hey, well, the media has to do a better job. No, media is paid for by advertising dollars. And while women's sports right now, when it comes to advertising dollars, they're throwing a lot more money at it than they have in the past. And that's because of superstars like Caitlin Clark, the Alex Morgans, the Megan Rapinos of the women's soccer team, right? We know that. But again, women have to start going to these events. It's a women's environment. And to be fair, I don't know if they give enough or care enough to be there. Right? Go watch these events. If you're relying on me to go, I mean, if I'm gonna take my money and I'm gonna spend it, right? Like just like this, think about it from the movie standpoint. How many men in America want to go watch a feel-good movie, a romantic comedy with their buddies? I mean, I'm just that's okay. Now, how many women are gonna go watch that movie with their girlfriends? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Significant difference. And if I sound sexist for saying this, I hope I don't. I'm not trying to be sexist here. I'm just trying to state the facts. Is that every single day in this country, people are going to these events, and they're going to the ones that probably on some level have a little bit more, star power, more oomph, whatever it might be, right? And make the game a family affair. Fair. But the culture in our society has shifted. You used to be married at 23 years old in this country. You're not married at 23. Okay. You're getting married at 33. You're getting married at 34. So you might not have your family right now. And if you're relying on family stadiums, of course they will. Of course they will. But again, if you think about it from the family standpoint, if mom and dad and their two kids are going to go watch a game, okay, and they're going to take that $300, because let's be honest, it's going to cost the kind of money to go to a game now. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to put your money? Your kids, where they going to want to watch these games? They're going to want to go watch what their friends are all talking about. Oh, the NFL. Let's go watch the Lions. Let's go watch the Chargers. Let's go watch. Let's go. U.S. men's national team is in town. Let's go watch that game. Right? That's where that goes. If you're relying on families and men to go to these games, you're never going to hit. The women have to support each other. And then you know what happens when you do that is then when women start to support each other, then the boyfriends start to come, right? Then the husbands start to come. Then the families start to come. But if you're relying on me as the husband to say, hey babe, let's go watch that rom-com on Saturday, I am not gonna say that. And it's nothing against the rom-com. Like, I'm not going to say that. I mean, the stereotypical man's not going to do that. They're not going to be like, let's go watch the rom. No, your wife's going to be like, hey, let's go watch that rom-com. Want to watch a really good movie? Let's go watch this. Let's go watch this movie. Yeah, okay. I'll go. Just like the fact that my children want to go watch the cartoon, the latest Avengers movie, right? If you're going to sit here and tell me as a father what movie I like to go watch, Die Hard 10. I'd like to go, watch any one of the new, Gladiator. I mean, I'm just thinking about from that standpoint. What I want to go watch some action movie, maybe an Adam Sandler. I mean, Happy Gilmore too. Gonna go watch that one for sure, right? But that will, is that my kid's first choice? No, it's not. Chicago Sky of the WNBA moved their spectators close to the court to make it look like the arena is full. No one is sitting in the balcony seats. Yeah, again, and it isn't about how cheap the ticket is either. I don't think it has to be about cheapness. It just means that people have to start supporting each other. The men's sports get the support because that's where they've, and again, generationally, right? We've all grown up watching men's sports. Only in the last 2 decades have women's sports really become a thing. And because of that, it's generational. But the generation has to start right now. The 16-year-old girl who's with her mom, they have to go to the game. And then that girl is going to, when she gets to 26, is going to want to go with her girlfriends, right? And then at 36, she's going to want to take her daughter, right? That's how that should work. It becomes generational. My father took me to a football game when I was a kid. What did I do when I got to an adult? I went with my buddies to a game. And then as a father, what do? I take my kids to the game. It becomes generational. Mothers got to take their daughters. Then girls go with each other. And then the girl takes her daughter to the game. That's how that changes. If you want to change the way this works culturally, that's how it works. So moms, don't take your daughter to the play. Take her to the basketball game. I'm not saying you shouldn't take her to the play. I'm just saying take her to the game. And then guess what? She'll then want to go to the game when she's older, because hopefully she will, right? But how many women are doing that with their kids? No, we're going to go to the nail salon. We're going to go, my daughter goes to the nail salon, my wife, all the time. Let's go to this concert. It's not let's go to a basketball game. It's not let's go watch a volleyball game with women playing in it, right? Like, that's probably how this is going to go. Think about how sports evolve. What do you do on a Sunday? You sit down on the TV, you watch the game with your son. You're right. You bring your daughter, and fathers do it as well. Fathers will have their daughter sit next to them, watch the game. But if you're relying on the men to do it, it's like my wife's, there's a pile of dishes in the sink. I love my wife very much. She associates the fact that I do the dishes with that, or I don't do them, I don't love her. That's how that works. Unfortunately, I love my wife very much, but because I don't do the dishes does not mean I don't love her. But I'm not going to go do the dishes just sitting there. I literally need her to say, John, dishes, or I'm mad at you. Okay. I'm going to go run over there and do it.
Right.
So it has to be led by women. It does in the women's game. And yes, men should be there to support them in every aspect of it. But if we're relying on us, it's never going to get done. And that's why the She Believes Cup, for example, it's called the She Believes Cup. It's not called the He Believes in Her Cup. She believes. So it should be led by women.
Right.
All the way through. And it probably sounds terrible for a couple men to talk about this, but I mean, that's what has to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with what you have to say. Because I do think that's important. What I will say is that female support for men's sports, I feel like has always been there. The NFL has always been
kind of. I mean, I think a lot of it is like anything else, right? It's the same concept of the whole movie thing where, you're going to go and support your girlfriend or your husband or whatever.
I do think there are many millions of women, even in our country alone, that love sports and will watch men's sports. And that is what's contributed to how big they are. You can't just take the women out of the equation. Like, they have played a huge role in this. And so I do think it's on men to show up and go to those games. But what I will say is I do like what Peter had to say, highlighting the superstars and how the media does make an impact. The Caitlin Clark effect was in a lot of ways generated by the media, and she could do no wrong, right? She was not a pleasurable person to play against. She was not a pleasurable person to coach against, because she wasn't this angel that the media made her out to be. But guess what? The media created that monster. And so that's why we see what we see in women's basketball. I know it's driven by advertiser. I get it. I get that. But the reason why we had what we had, even between her and Angel Reese, when we make those comparisons between Magic and Larry, that was driven by the media. That storyline was driven by the media. Now, the whole racial thing, we don't have to get into that. I think it's kind of sad, but if it helps it, it helps it. But then you look back at some of the players that have been in that league already. Sabrina Ionescu. You think of all the greats that have played in the WNBA who have accomplished very similar things to that of CC. Now, they weren't, obviously as prolific scorers. They weren't the whole Steph Curry thing shooting from the logo. And I know people love seeing that. But we're a little late getting involved with this. And we found our one superstar to latch on to, and I get it. But I think a lot of it comes down to where is our focus as a society. And even if we shine a little, we talk about shining lights on here. the moment we started shining a light on superstars in women's college basketball, all of a sudden now we have sold out arenas going to see CC. And I'm going to tell you this right now, she's not the only bona fide superstar out there.
No, she's not. And for the sake of time, we have to end the show. But no, I and it's a great conversation. And obviously this can go a lot of different directions. And I think the most important one is we just need more people at women's events, women's sports. And that will, and we have to also start treating each of these events like they are, which is, priority, high level, and really just do a much better job of showcasing women's sports in this country and around the world. But that'll wrap up here, episode number 34 here today. I want to thank you all for stopping by and watching here on Roku and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. But for Nathan Winkler, I am Jonathan Turner. We appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like us, and share us with all your friends and family. We'll be back at this again tomorrow morning, same time, same place at 9 a.m. right here on Inside the Game. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.